You've been lied to, played, programmed to forget who you are. They have dressed your identity in silence, trained your spirit to obey limits that were never yours to begin with. While you were trying to survive, they were planning how to keep you quiet, small, and dependent. But hear me now. You are not here by accident. You are not weak. You are not average. You are not broken. That feeling inside of you, the fire that refuses to die no matter how many times life tried to suffocate it, that is proof of something divine. Something they fear. That's why they try to tame you. That's why they distract you with noise, likes, fear, and approval. Because they know if you ever wake up, if you ever truly remember what's in you, they can't control you anymore. And that's why I'm speaking today. Because this moment isn't about motivation. This is warfare for your mind. This is a rescue mission for your destiny. If you walk away from this message halfway, you will return to the same cage you've always lived in, decorated with new excuses. But if you stay until the end, you will not walk out the same. Because I came here to break chains. Not with noise, but with truth, with fire. So stay. Stay if your soul has been restless. Stay if you've been questioning why you feel like you don't belong in the system. Stay if you've been quiet for too long. Stay if you're tired of being played. Because today, you rise. They told you to dream, but only within the limits of their approval. From the moment you opened your eyes in this world, they began shaping you into something small. Not because you were small, but because they were afraid of how big you could become. They taught you how to walk, but not how to rise. They gave you words, but silenced your truth. They gave you education, but not awareness. And somewhere along the way, you began to believe that what they gave you was all you could be. But let me ask you something. Who decided your worth? Who measured your potential? Who told you that your voice was too loud, your dreams too unrealistic, your purpose too much? You didn't come into this world empty. You came full of vision, full of power, full of truth. But over time, they buried that truth under distractions, under systems, under routines that slowly made you forget. They replaced your fire with fear, your confidence with comparison. And every time you chose to stay silent, every time you said it maybe later, every time you ignored that pull inside your chest, they won. They convinced you that playing small was wise, that humility meant hiding, that survival was enough. But that was never the truth. You were not born to survive. You were born to build, to lead, to disrupt, to create, to overcome. And deep inside, you know it. That's why you can't sleep peacefully. That's why no achievement feels complete. That's why you're tired of hearing the same recycled advice that never wakes anything up inside you. Because you know you were made for more. And not just more money, not just more success. More truth, more clarity, more fire, more of you. But they trained you well, didn't they? They trained you to wait, to hope, to beg, to smile in rooms where your spirit was screaming. To nod in agreement when your soul was crying, "This is not who I am." And they called that maturity. They said you were being realistic. But the truth is, they were afraid of the day you stopped asking for permission. They knew the moment you stopped settling, you would become a storm they could not contain. And let me be clear, this is not about them. This is about you. Because every day you continue to agree with their lies, every day you pretend to be less than what you are, every day you shrink so someone else can feel comfortable, you participate in your own betrayal. It is not the enemy outside that keeps most people trapped. It is the enemy they've allowed to live inside. The voice that says, "You're not ready." The voice that says, "Who are you to think you could rise above this?" That voice is not yours. It was planted. It was fed. But now it's your job to silence it. You see, they only win if you forget, and you have forgotten too much. You forgot that you come from legacy. You forgot that your ancestors survived storms no system could document. You forgot that your breath is already a sign of victory. You forgot that your existence threatens mediocrity. And now is the time to remember. Now is the time to return. Not to who the world told you to be, but to who you were before they named you. You don't need more motivation. You need confrontation. You need to confront the lies. You need to confront the fear. You need to confront the habits that have become cages. You need to confront the reality that you've been settling for a life far beneath your calling. And the moment you do that, the moment you stop entertaining weakness disguised as normalcy, you will begin to rise. This message is not for those who are comfortable. This is for those who feel that stirring, that ache, That burning dissatisfaction that says, there is more to me than this. And there is. But you must stop agreeing with the systems that trained you to forget it. You must stop digesting the poison of comparison, of shame, of delay. You must look yourself in the mirror and remember, you were never average. You just adapted to survive. But now you must evolve to lead. Because you've settled long enough. You've waited long enough. You've been quiet long enough. You've dimmed your light long enough. And now it's time. Time to stop getting played. Time to stand in your truth. Time to walk like you carry something sacred. Because you do, and the world will not give you your place. You must take it, not with arrogance, but with authority. The kind of authority that comes from finally knowing you are exceptional. You ever notice how every time you start to rise, something suddenly pulls you back? Not always a person. Sometimes a thought, a whisper inside your head that says, maybe I'm not ready. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe this is too much for me. That's not your intuition. That's not wisdom. That's warfare. That's the weakness they planted in you. That's the weapon they've been using against you for years, and you didn't even realize it. Weakness isn't just a feeling. It's a strategy, and those who want to control you have mastered the art of keeping you close to it. They don't have to chain your hands when they've already broken your confidence. They don't need to silence you if they've already taught you to doubt your own voice. That's how they play the game. They don't attack your strength directly. They seduce your weakness. They feed it. They praise it. They normalize it. And before long, you begin to protect it as if it's a part of you. You don't see the trap until it's too late. They tell you that being passive is peaceful, that hiding your opinion is respectful, that avoiding the fight makes you wise. But that's not peace. That's paralysis. That's fear dressed up in language that makes it look holy. But what they're really doing is keeping you tame, keeping you safe, keeping you small. Because when you operate in your full strength, they lose control. And nothing scares them more than someone who has remembered their power. They didn't fear your silence. They feared your clarity. They feared the day you would stop second-guessing your instincts. They feared the moment you would stop apologizing for being intense, for being passionate, for being different. They feared the day you would stop asking for permission to speak, to build, to lead. That's why they praised your humility only when you were quiet. That's why they complimented your character only when you were obedient. Because they weren't honoring your goodness, they were rewarding your submission. Every system that exploits you survives on your hesitation. They survive on your confusion. They survive on your belief that you need them. But the truth is, they need you weak. They need you wounded. They need you unsure of who you are. Because when you stand in your strength, you no longer need their validation. You no longer serve their agenda. You become a threat. And let me tell you something about strength. It's not always loud. It doesn't always show up as a shout. Sometimes it's in the decision to keep going when everything tells you to quit. Sometimes it's in the refusal to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Sometimes it's in the silence that refuses to be manipulated. Sure, but whatever form it takes, your strength is the one thing they can't control. So they try to convince you it's dangerous. They try to make you feel guilty for having it, and over time, you learn to hide it, to shrink it, to disown it. But that ends now. You've spent enough time playing by rules written to keep you powerless. You've spent enough time asking for advice from people who never wanted to see you rise in the first place. You've spent enough time questioning your greatness because of people who were intimidated by it. This is not the season to play soft. This is the season to step into your authority. You don't owe anyone an explanation for being powerful. You don't owe anyone a discount version of yourself so they can feel comfortable. And you don't have to apologize for moving with purpose. If your strength makes the insecure feel exposed, that is not your burden to carry. If your clarity makes others uncomfortable, that is not your cue to dim your light. You were not made to blend in. You were made to shift the atmosphere. Stop calling it wisdom when it's really fear. Stop calling it peace when it's just avoidance. Stop calling it humility when it's self-erasure. Your strength is not a liability. It's your weapon. It's your birthright. And it's time to reclaim it. Because the real war is not out there. The real war is inside. And if they can convince you to abandon yourself, they never need to fire a shot. You will defeat yourself daily without them lifting a finger. But not anymore. Not today. Because now you know the truth. And the truth is this. Your weakness was never yours, it was planted. But your strength, that was born with you. And it's time the world sees it. You keep waiting, waiting for a sign, waiting for the right time, waiting for someone to give you the green light to be who you already know you're supposed to be. But let me tell you something. No one is coming. There is no savior arriving to validate your potential. No master plan where they finally hand you the mic and say, "And now is your moment." This world wasn't built to give you permission. It was built to make you beg for it. And yet, here you are, holding back, dimming your power, postponing your purpose like you've got eternity to play with. You keep saying a one day, and that day keeps becoming never. Not because you aren't capable, not because you aren't chosen, but because you're waiting for a confirmation that was already carved into your soul the moment you were born. Boy, Dizuk, you think someone else needs to see it before you believe it, but it doesn't work like that. Power doesn't wait, purpose doesn't beg, and greatness doesn't knock on doors. It breaks them down. They trained you to wait. They taught you that it was noble to be silent, polite to be invisible, and humble to stay in the background. They told you not to speak too loudly, not to want too much, not to shine too brightly. They warned you that being too bold would make people uncomfortable, but they never warned you what would happen if you kept waiting, if you kept playing small, if you kept silencing your own voice one apology at a time, one delay at a time, one doubt at a time. The truth is, you've already been approved. You've already been anointed. You've already been equipped. Everything you're waiting for is already inside of you. The only thing left is for you to believe it, not just with your words, but with your walk, with your decisions, with the way you show up, not hesitantly, not nervously, not hoping they'll like you, but boldly, like you know you belong, because when you move like you're chosen, the atmosphere shifts. People respond differently. Doors open that were sealed shut for years, not because they suddenly changed, but because you did. You stopped asking. You started commanding. You stopped hoping. You started declaring. You stopped watching from the sidelines. You stepped into the arena, uninvited, unannounced, but unshaken. You don't need another confirmation. You need confrontation. You need to confront the lie that tells you to wait. You need to confront the fear that says you're not ready. You need to confront the guilt that creeps in every time you think too big, dream too loud, move too fast. That guilt is not your guide, it's your enemy. It's the voice of every insecure system that wants you tame. But you weren't built to be tame. You weren't created to be manageable. You were born to lead, and leaders don't wait. They move, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's lonely, even when no one claps. You don't need a crowd to begin. You don't need applause to rise. You don't need their permission to start walking in your purpose. You just need to decide that enough is enough. Enough silence. Enough playing nice with your destiny. Enough making room for fear when power is pounding at your door. Because the people you're waiting on to believe in you, they're watching to see if you believe in you first. The platform you're hoping to earn, it's waiting to see if you'll build it without one. The breakthrough you're praying for, it's not waiting for a miracle, it's waiting for your movement. Faith without movement is just a wish. Vision without execution is just a dream. And potential without action is just wasted power. Stop sitting in rooms that drain you, hoping someone will finally see you. Stop showing up in relationships that survive off your silence. Stop delaying the life you know you're supposed to be living. Every day you wait, someone else steps into your place. Every moment you hesitate, your gift goes unused. And there are people waiting for the version of you that you keep postponing. But this is your wake-up call. No more waiting. No more wishing. No more wasting time. The world doesn't need another copy, another echo, another shadow. It needs you, fully, boldly, without apology. This is not the season to blend in. This is the moment to break out. And the only permission you need is the one you give yourself, that you think your pain disqualifies you. You think the failures, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the sleepless nights, they make you broken. But let me tell you the truth they never wanted you to discover. Your pain is not a weakness. It's your proof. Proof that you've endured what others wouldn't have survived. No. Proof that you've carried burdens no one clapped for. Proof that you've been through storms that would have destroyed most people. And yet here you are, still breathing, still standing, still fighting. They tried to bury you. Life tried to break you. People you trusted tried to destroy your spirit. your spirit. But what they didn't realize is that everything meant to crush you was actually shaping you. Every hardship wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Every delay wasn't denial, it was divine timing. Every closed door wasn't rejection, it was redirection. You weren't being abandoned, you were being forged. Your pain didn't come to end you, it came to build you. You learned how to walk alone, not because you wanted to, but because no one stayed. You learned how to protect your own heart, not because you're cold, but because the ones you gave it to didn't know how to hold it. You learned how to grind, how to move in silence, how to keep going without applause. Not because you crave isolation, but because the world showed you that not everyone can handle your process. And yet, through all of it, you never lost that flicker of purpose inside. That whisper that kept saying, "No, there's more." They couldn't kill that voice, no matter how hard they tried. They couldn't drown it in disappointment. They couldn't suffocate it with betrayal. Because you were never ordinary. That pain you carry, it's sacred. It's what separates you from the crowd. It's what makes your voice different, your wisdom deeper, your discernment sharper. That's why your perspective hits harder. That's why when you speak, it resonates, because your words were formed in fire. They weren't borrowed. They were birthed through struggle. You didn't read about it, you lived it. You didn't rehearse your power, you bled for it. That's why no one can take it from you. That's why they're uncomfortable around you now, because they see the weight you carry. Not the weight on your shoulders, but the weight in your spirit, the substance, the authority. And no matter how they try to dress it up, they know you're different. Stop hiding the very thing that makes you unstoppable. Stop acting like your scars are something to be ashamed of. Those scars, they're your credentials. They're your reminder that you fought hell and made it back alive. Every scar has a name, a story, a moment when you could have quit but didn't. And now you want to tone that down so people can feel comfortable. You want to pretend like you haven't walked through fire, so you don't intimidate the insecure? No? Absolutely not. Because someone out there needs to see those scars. Needs to know that healing is possible. That victory doesn't always look polished. That strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it cries at night. Sometimes it bleeds behind closed doors. But it still shows up. And it still wins. You didn't go through all of that to play soft. You didn't survive everything just to keep pretending. There's no reward in minimizing yourself, so the world can feel okay with not rising. They'll call you arrogant. Let them talk. They don't know what it took for you to wake up and face another day. They don't know how much pain you had to silence just to smile. You're not arrogant, you're aware. And when you're aware of what it took to become who you are, you no longer tolerate being anything less. So wear that pain like armor. Not because you're still hurting, but because it reminds you what you overcame. Because every time you wanted to give up, you didn't. Every time you thought it was over, you found another breath. And that right there, that resilience is not normal. It's exceptional. It's rare. And it's yours. Stop looking at your past like it's something you need to escape from. Your past is part of your power. Those hard chapters, those broken seasons, those lonely nights, they made you. They sharpened your instinct. They deepened your spirit. And now you walk into rooms with weight. Not because of what you wear, but because of what you've carried. The pain didn't break you. It built you. It built you. And now, the world has no idea what's about to rise from the ashes.